This album deals with grief and difficult recovery from separations. The relationships in your songs made me think of the ordeals some characters have to face in some Truffaut's film, François Truffaut.
Oh, yes.
They go through heartbreaking events, yet they manage to survive, they live on, they find strength in themselves, although they feel completely lost.
Yes.
I was wondering, which films or filmmakers do you find truly inspiring?
Of the recent films I've seen, maybe in the last 5 years. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, the Mexican director who did Beautiful with Javier Bardem, in which he plays the part of a father who is dying and who decides that he has to, in some way, set things up for his children so that they will be able to survive without him. And it's improbably bleak, and it's like the reverse Barcelona to Woody Allen's Barcelona. But it's a powerful testimony to his love for his children and the sort of sacrifices that he's willing to make. That knocked me sideways. I really loved that. I couldn't really name a Truffaut.
I think the title is Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful, yeah. Inarritu? I can't remember how to pronounce it.
In French we say Inarritu.
Inarritu, okay, yeah. But I couldn't actually think of a Truffaut that has affected me as profoundly as that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I read in an article that you compared creativity to sensuality as a way of losing track of oneself, but also as an abolition of thoughts. Do you obey a force within yourself, as Jean Cocteau suggested he did when writing?
Yeah, well, I think that is the gift and the surprise of writing, is that, and it's a wonderful thing, and it is like the sensual life. You do disappear, and you disappear into it, and there you are in this other world or a zone or whatever, and many of the chains and ties of daily life are just never there. It's kind of hard to attain that. Performing, I find it easier to do it. Writing, I wish it would happen more. But writing is as a sustained sort of thing, I don't really have, because I'm not really writing novels, which is that, we can be flowing through a whole lot of prose. And I tend to write in an undisciplined way as well. I'm kind of sporadic and erratic and fragmented, whereas performance is different, in the sense that performance is this, it's almost like a river into which you submerge yourself and you disappear, and then you wake up on the other side of the performance and think, well, that was a beautiful lapse of time. It's sort of like that. And the sensual life is like that as well. It's that lostness that's the rainbow's end that we're all after in some way. I think particularly if you are a writer or a musician. Yeah.
As for writers, you've said that Black Ribbons was inspired by Graham Greene's The End of the Affair.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
passage or element of the story triggered your desire of
It
writing?
was really that I did not want to write the end of the affair, because I think I've written enough the end of the affair songs. And you know, traditionally the end of the affair, if it's counted at all, is very destructive. You know, the people are really, they may be leaving one another, but one of them, and sometimes it's a seesaw, you know, but there's a lot of destruction there. And what I wanted to do, what I thought of trying with Black Ribbons was, these people have had something and it worked once, but now they think, well, it doesn't work anymore, it's not what it was, but it was good, and it was good while it lasted, and they almost give this idea of it, they accept this idea of it for themselves and give it to one another as a gift, you know, but it is tied up with black ribbons because it's gone, it's their past, it's what they had. And I just wanted to try and write. Sometimes I try writing things that wouldn't occur naturally to me, and what would probably occur more naturally to me would be to write that they destroyed one another. I don't know. But, you know, I also like the idea that, because this happens, and, you know, it's happened with me, friendships or, you know, relationships, and it's just like, okay, well, that was good, but it's gone, and, you know, we don't have to destroy one another. We can, you know, accept that we had something good and was worth something once, and let's think of it like that, and we'll just give it to one another in this way, tied up with black ribbons. Yeah, so it was more that I didn't want to do the end of the affair, which I find a beautiful book. I'm a big Graham Greene fan, and I do love the end of the affair and the obsession that is the river running through it. I understand that perfectly, but I didn't want to write another story like that.
Okay. The introduction of Looking for Another sounds like a film soundtrack to me.
Well, I'm glad that it does. I like that idea that it would.
It was like an opening to me, really,
right.
like a film opening, and I wondered whether you listen to film composers.
Yeah, I do, and I always have. When I was 17, there was I was living at my parents' house. My children will probably be living with me until they're 14, but I left home at 18, but I was still living at my parents' house when I was 17. And there was a news story on, and it was a Sunday night. It was a magazine story, not just a news story. It was like a longer story, a 5-minute or 10-minute story. And the music came on, and I worshipped it. And this is a long time ago. This is the 70s. And the music just was so immediate for me. So I wrote to the television station and said, what was the music? And they wrote back and they said it was the Jamais Payé by Satie, orchestrated by Debussy. And that was like, that's a door that I have to go through. And so, you know, that was the gateway to Ravel and Debussy, and listening to orchestral music, you know, because, you know, I'm the same as everybody else, you know, I mostly listen to, you know, songs and, you know, yeah, all sorts of things, you know. But, yeah, and it was a gateway to that. But particularly, you know, what also intrigues me about that is that Satie was 23 when he wrote Jamais Payé, and he really disowned it. in many ways. And it was only when Ravel showed his faith in it, or rather Debussy wanted to orchestrate it, that it became something else for him. But he was 23. He wrote I think the Nocien and the Jamais Pedi around the same time, all in the space of a couple of months when he was 23. And then he didn't want to be that Erik Satie anymore. He wanted to be a different, more skeptical, less romantic Erik Satie. So he kind of distanced himself from it. And then the music was going to be, forgotten until Debussy stepped in and orchestrated it. And then suddenly, it was discovered by American orchestras in the 50s, and then it gradually, once you hear that music, you don't forget it. So I listened to quite a bit of film composers, and again it was the same thing. It was going to see movies when I was a kid. I loved Chinatown. Jerry Goldsmith wrote the score for that. That is just
an amazing
beautiful,
film.
yeah. And those tracks and those worlds they're like you just bathe in this beautiful, sensual water of melody and harmony, and So, but I can't do that kind of thing, because I'm not classically trained, and I never really I'm not comfortable with technology at all, but I can play a bit of piano, and I've got some string samples and things like that, so I can throw things together and then give it to other players to have a more organic, richer sound, and that's what I did with Looking for Another Town. I just played that on the piano, and then things would occur to me, harmonies would occur to me, and then I'd just put them down, and then gradually it sort of became what it is.